Hello, everybody. I'm coming to you with just a fun little end of the year video.
Editor Kelly here. Yes, I filmed this with my good old friends last year, but before you tune out, I think it's still really relevant. It's just a good reflection on your past reading, on our past reading, goals we're setting for the future. And 2025 has been a topsy-turvy year. So maybe you made goals and they're no longer relevant, or just you need to reevaluate. Maybe you haven't got around to goals or anything because life has been crazy, the world's been crazy. So sit down with us, put this in the background, and enjoy.
Very cozy, still in my PJs. We're going to be talking about our reading, overall reading of 2024 and any goals or exciting things for 2025. And I have my two booktube friends with me. So it's Jay and Rosika. If you guys
Oh,
want to unmute and say hi.
hello.
Hello, I'm Rosika.
I am so glad that we were able to do this because I thought it'd be better than just me rambling about my own stuff to like kind of have this back and forth because everyone has different goals and things. They've had different reading experiences. And so I thought it'd just be a fun little way to end 2024 and welcome in 2025. So, yay. And I just have a handful of questions to kind of prompt us into things. So the first I have is overall, how was 2024 for your reading? Anything that you want to put adjective wise in, or overall how you felt about, your the books you read, the books you didn't read, the goals you may have had.
I felt my reading year was exceptionally mid, to borrow language of the youths. I just felt like I read a lot of popcorn books that I really enjoyed, and then they didn't overlap very much with the ones where I'm like, ah, this is true literary greatness, but I would not read this again. Finding like a top five for this year was genuinely difficult because I had like maybe one or two books where I was like, ah, that was like that just slapped. And then the rest were like, eh, had gaping flaws. So I would call my reading year very, very mid.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I had like a middling reading year also. Like when I was coming up with my top 10 books for this year. Well, one I didn't read. I read 12 books total. So I actually had to like go back into 2023 to pull out books I actually liked. I don't know. I just think I was either bad at picking books or I had like a kind of like a set TBR recommendations I still needed to get through. And I kind of realized that TBRs don't work for me. I when the mood strikes, I need to read it. And if the mood doesn't strike, I'm not gonna like it. Like I know that about myself now. I'm an emotional girl.
Okay, that's really interesting. The only category I killed it in this year was my reading. But also, I had an easier time for that to be the case because I'm single and unemployed. So that's a lot of free time for reading. I read 123 books. I'll probably have a few more by the end of the year because I have a couple in the works that I'm probably going to finish.
I'm sorry, we need to insert the audible gasp that I just made because you said 120. I said, oh, so there you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, there needs to
Uh,
be like a gallery view for like this needs to be a gallery view, like this part where
yes.
me and Rosika were like, girl.
I will say it's not as dramatic as it sounds because I also read poetry, manga, graphic novels, things like that. So they're not all like, 1,000-page behemoths. But
No,
yeah, like
stop. It's impressive.
I read quite a few good books. I got to reread more this year, so that's exciting. A few classics, a few popular books or authors. And so, yeah, I'm pretty happy with my 2024 reading. I think leading into that, I was curious if you guys had explored any new genres or authors that in 2024.
I did. I explored, so I talked about this book like in multiple videos at this point, but I read Babel by R.F. Wong, which I think is kind of like it counts as a historical fiction, even if there's some fantasy elements. And it was just so unlike anything I'd ever read. Like I really stray away from really like long books that seem like they're more like based in like history. But this book like smacked me in the face with so many feelings. Like I did not know what to expect at all going into this book, and it is like my absolute favorite. And I literally just bought a copy of it so I could have it physically in my home. So, yeah. So that really surprised me.
I've been waiting to read Babel forever, so I'm a little jealous. I finally read a fiction Hayuki Murakami, and of course I decided to start with 1Q84 because that 1,300 page book seemed like the one to start with. I really enjoyed it. I want to read another one because I want to know if he's obsessed with boobs and ears as much in his other fiction writing, because there's so much talking about breasts, so much. I also read a lot of like back catalogs. I finished all of Ruth Ware's back catalogs. I've now officially read everything that she's written, at least under her nom de plume of Ruth Ware. She used to be like a YA writer, so it's not even her real name. Fun facts, bombs dropped. And I also read the entire back, not the entire, but I read most of the back catalog of Kevin Wilson as a birthday present for Jay. So I can say that I've
Woo!
explored the world of Kevin Wilson.
When like Babel came out, I was just like, oh, whatever. But because there's been such hype, and then Jay, you've read it and liked it, and I have another friend who really liked it. I'm now like, maybe I should. And then 1Q84, I think is the only fiction of Murakami's I've read. It was a book on paper I shouldn't have liked. It was like put a trance on me, and I'm like, why on earth am I still?
Yeah,
But yeah,
for like whole chapters. You're like, why am I still reading? Nothing has happened for 400 pages. Nothing. And you're
like,
like,
yeah,
well, what if something does happen? So let's just keep going.
there were like 100 pages where like literally every POV character was waiting. And I'm just like, how am I still here? I'm so quick to bounce that it was kind of wild. So new genres or authors for me. Um, I think mainly I just did a few more classics or well-known books this year. I read what was it? Portrait of Dorian Gray. I reread 1984, which was good because I read it when I was super young and was not very tolerant of how slow classics and older literature can be. I read Moby Dick, finally finished that one, just slid into home in December. I Robot, so things like that. And so kind of nice to check a lot of those things off my list. And I did enjoy quite a few of them. But I'm also not scared of a DNF. I will just like nobody's business.
Did you like iRobot? I must know. I'm an Asimov girly.
I loved it. I was kind of shook at how much I loved it. It was just so good on every level. Like, yeah, it's definitely going to be in my top books of the year. And it was a later read of this year too. So it really scooched into yeah, maybe being a new fave.
I know this is not the time or place to give like the book recommendations, but if you liked iRobot, I love his short story collection called The Illustrated Man. It is by far one of my favorite books of all time. So I would
I
highly
thought that was
recommend
Ray
that one.
Bradbury. And I've
Oh,
read
fuck,
Illustrated
is
Man.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, don't put that in there.
Rosika has mom
Um,
brain, so no one can hold anything against her.
I didn't get an English degree.
Number three, did you have any reading goals and did you achieve them? Why or why not?
I had a few reading goals, uh, and it's why I think my year was mid. I had I had to read my TBR shelf because I was moving. So I had like 32, 33 books on my shelf I was trying to read before I moved, and I think I got through about two-thirds of that. I did read, my goal was 45 books for the year, and I read 75. Oops. So so I definitely like, it was like my happy place for reading is definitely in that 50 to like 80 book range. So I was very happy. I think I was pushing through a bunch of books that I might normally have DNF'd, which was not as good. Um, and then I had like 6 books that I wanted to read, just like get them out of the way, and I read five. The only one I didn't read was The Two Towers, which was literally from the year prior as well, because I didn't read it in 2023 either. So I did achieve a lot of book goals, but I think it was the forcing of the book goals that maybe made me not have as many enjoyable.
It's a hard balance of having some parameters, having goals to be mindful of, but also not having it derail your enjoyment in reading. Did you feel like you had to finish them because it was a goal, or because like this was the only shot they have before you got rid of them?
I think I was trying to give them like a fair shake. I definitely DNF like quite a few, but I was like, if it holds my interest at all, this is your time. This is your time for me to read Seth Rogen's memoir. Like, this is your moment for me to read Piranesi and be like, why are we still talking about stairs? And like I enjoyed both of those books, but I'm also like looking back on me here, I'm like, what the hell was I reading this year?
Yeah, same. I had 5 books that I needed to read that were like layovers from 2023. And, uh, at some point you have too much cannibalism. At some point, the cannibalism all blurs together.
I want to point out you solicited the cannibalism. Okay, you asked for books. Give me books about people eating other people. This was things that you asked the internet.
I asked for that in addition to other genres. I wanted murderous women. I wanted a revolution. I wanted something with a love story. But everyone gave me cannibalism, Rex. Everyone front loaded cannibalism.
I love the fact that cannibalism is having a moment. Like you did list several different things, and everyone's just like the most taboo subject. They're like, "Oh, I have a rec for that."
I know, I thought it was gonna be an even split. Actually, I didn't know, like, I thought cannibalism would have the least amount of recommendations. Like, I was like, are we okay? Like, what's going on?
You were still in the middle of talking about your answer, I think, Jay.
Was I? Oh, yes. Yeah, so, like, there's a lot of cannibalism. It kind of bleeds. It just kind of seems to be all the same. But, like, this year was when I realized I'm a mood reader and I don't like being tied down to lists. I don't like making arbitrary, like, I'm gonna read more of this genre or this genre sort of goals. Like, I think, like, if a book strikes me, that's when I am the most, like, excited about it. So I accomplished my goal. Like, I at least gave all of those cannibalism books a fair shot, but I did intentionally DNF some of them because I knew I just wasn't in the mood, and I feel happy with that decision as well.
Yeah, I'm always the friend supporting the DNF. Like life is too short if you're not vibing, just bounce. I do love that, like what a wild thing to be like, just too much cannibalism. And so for me, what did I do? Oh, so kind of an interesting theme that I hadn't planned on emerged of like relating to George Orwell. So I reread 1984. I read Down and Out in Paris and London, and then I read a nonfiction called Finding George Orwell in Burma. So that was kind of fun little quinky dink that just kind of happened. And then at the start of this year, I did the 24 books in 2024 challenge. And for me, it's not about like getting 100% completion. It's like, was I mindful of a goal and did I make progress in it? And so for me, I considered it a success that I got 15.5 out of 24 books. The point 0.5 being like I have this honking like 700 page short story anthology from school, from back in school that I was reading. And not only is it 700 pages, it's single spaced and like it's that like onion leaf paper that's so thin. So it's next level. So I've been reading short stories from it throughout the year. I just haven't like fully knocked it out. So I'm like, good. It's only been a cold minute now since I've been in college. So I'm glad I finally like actually read some stuff in it. And in fact, I think I'm gonna do I think I'll just keep it an even 20 book TBR, but I like that idea of like looking at books I've been holding out on or that I have that I like actually am really excited about and cultivating a list that I just kind of pop in and out of throughout the year because that was really satisfying for me and helped me not get too lost in my guilty pleasure reading. Because it's like, okay, every, 5 or 6 books, let's circle back around what was on that list of things I care about, but like isn't brain rot. And so, yeah.
I love that. And also, I have a feeling that's why I didn't like my reading as much this year is because my TBR required list was not books that were like marinating, stewing. I've been wanting to read these forever. It was like, this is literally on my shelf and it's got to go. So they weren't books that I was like, oh, I've been dying to read these forever. Or, oh my God, I've been like stewing since college to finish this book. And it's like a huge personal achievement, which by the way, props to you, because like that sounds like a really tough book to get through with the onion leaf in the single space. So
It
I
is.
think,
It's such a heavy book to
oh,
hold, too.
oh God. I think maybe if I had a book list, I'm not going to do it this year, but like maybe, in a following year, if I had maybe a book list of books that I really have been aching to get to, where I know I'm going to enjoy them, not just books that I'm like, I picked this up at a library and it's been sitting on my shelf for 30 years collecting dust.
Yeah, I think emotion's huge. I think making sure it's not a chore. And yeah, maybe also the amount for you was too high, especially like I think we're all mood readers. We all have a lot going on in our lives. So like we really need that, especially because it's not work, that delicious divulgence from like being like, I want to do this now. I want to go crazy. And so yeah, that balance is key, I think. And that's the other reason why like I'm not gonna up it every year. I'm not a fucking Aries. It's just gonna be a solid 20. It's gonna be 20 books. That's it. And because of how much I read, that's a good chunk. Like if it kept increasing, I think it would get unwieldy for like the amount of books I read per like what I'm making TBR stuff. So there's that. Now, what's one book you read this year that you think everyone should read and why? And Jay, you didn't read a ton, so if you want to pass because you don't think everyone needs to read a book on cannibalism, I feel yeah.
No, I got one. I got one. Um, so obviously Babel was my favorite this year, and I recommend everyone reading it. But for to give a different answer, I would say Somewhere Beyond the Sea slash House in the Cerulean Sea because I love that duology so much. It fills me with serotonin. It cures my seasonal depression. Um, and I think there are a lot of great like lessons about like family and also reevaluating your expectation, like your prejudices, and also standing up to existing systems and being like your truest self. Like I think there's just like a lot of beautiful like things to take away from that series. So that's my recommendation.
I 100% second Somewhere Beyond the Sea because I also finished that this year and it also gave me serotonin and cured my seasonal affective depression. So I can confirm it's a very good sequel. My book, I'm gonna pitch and everyone should read it, is completely outside of my wheelhouse. Technically, it's classed as historical fiction, which I want to say is a little bit insulting because it's set in 2011 and I was a sophomore in college. And that hurts. Like it hurts. And that's As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Kato, which is a historical fiction. It's based in Syria and it follows two characters who are young adults who are in a horrible, horrible situation of trying to live through the Syrian civil war following the uprising after the Arab Spring. And I feel like it's just not stories that you see very much of in Western literary media. And it is just one of the best things that I have ever read. I super recommend everybody reads it. Also, if you're a Studio Ghibli nerd, the two main characters are super into Studio Ghibli, which is great and nerdy and wonderful. And I really loved it. And I think that also the book was published in like 2022, but following the events that like have just happened in Syria with like the overthrow of Assad's regime and all the atrocities that he committed against his own people coming to light. It's a book written from the perspective of two people living through it in Syria, and it's just so good. And it made me cry, and the book has not made me cry in a good long time. So just read it. It's one of the best things I've read in a long time. And she threatens the internet.
I'm glad you recommended that one because I had never heard of it. So I'm sure that's the case for other people as well. So promote, promote. I'm going a very different direction for mine. It's one that I read maybe a month or two ago, and it's nonfiction. So it's Rising Out of Hatred, The Awakening of a Former White Nationalist by Ellie um, Maslow. Yeah. And so it's a really interesting biography, but also relates so heavily to what we're going through in America, both in the past and now. Truly a fascinating story because, like, the Ellie was, or sorry, not Ellie. It's about, it's written by a journalist about this former white nationalist who was the son to the guy who created the Stormfront website, which has a lot of white nationalist hatred stuff on it. And he's kind of like the godson to the former KKK guy, Duke, what's his face? I'm bad with names. So it's, I think it's just a really important read right now for what's going on in America and understanding where this side is coming from and how people get indoctrinated into it and the methods in which they come to see the wider impact of what's going on in the world and how their actions are really harmful. Also, an absolute riot to me because like I like Googled this person and they're now gay and trans. And so it's just like everything that white nationalism doesn't stand for. They're just like, yep, okay, I'm not white nationalist. Okay, I'm not even a dude. And like, I love that arc. But yeah, I think it's just it's not great for the serotonin, but I think it is helpful because I think the only way for us to come together is to really understand how we got here in the first place. And so I hope I explained that as well as I can, considering I derped on all the names, but it's a good read. It's an important read.
I'm adding it to the TBR. It sounds wildly good. Also for the time we live in currently.
Absolutely. And because he goes to like a really small liberal college too. And so he goes from being homeschooled and being just like he helped make the kids section of the Stormfront website. And like by like they thought he was going to take over. Like he was like kind of heir to all of it. And he was like leading conferences, he was doing public speeches at a really young age and stuff like that. And then when he gets to college, like the first person like he befriends essentially everyone that like they speak out against, where it's like he befriends an immigrant, he like starts dating a Jewish girl and has to like reconcile and grapple with that, where it's like and like where does this these abstract notions that I've grown up with relate to the reality of like this person in front of me?
It's almost like it's much easier to hate people if you don't know anyone like
Yes.
them. And it's
Yeah.
almost like if you're confronted by people being actually just people,
Mhm.
they're much more difficult to hate. Which all the way, by the way, all our books sort of centered on
Mm.
those themes. So look at us.
Yeah. I think the other thing too as well, because that's a good point you bring up. I think the other thing is even when you're not advocating for death or major injury, because I think on an abstract notion, like those things can get like a greater attention because it's like, oh, well, we're not saying they should die. We're not saying blah, blah, blah. But it's like, what is the reality of displacing all these people if you say that like they shouldn't be in America anymore? And what is the reality of being like, we're knocking door to door and taking you from your homes? Like, how does that work? how does the logistics work? How is that not immensely harmful and traumatizing? And it's like, oh yeah, if we actually go to the steps of what this would entail, because it's like it's nice on an abstract notion to be like, oh yeah, whatever. Like we'll have our place, you'll have your place, it'll all be fine and dandy. And it's like, mm, if we sit with that idea a little bit longer, certain flaws arise. Really interesting. I kind of just picked it up by accident, and I'm like, ooh, this is pertinent.
No, I love that. Like, I think it's absolutely a book that we all need to be reading because we need to understand how like people like this think in order to pull them closer to the middle. You can't
Hmm.
just be in your own bubble because they're in their own bubble and their ideas are just going to fester and become more extreme and it doesn't do anything. It's hard to have like difficult conversations with people you vehemently disagree with, but it's also extremely necessary in order to make actual progress because we're all stuck in this country together.
Yeah, and totally. And I think a book or podcast or whatever is also a great space for you to encounter that in a safe capacity first, like in a really passive way, just being like, let me just see what's out there without having to like deal with the confrontation immediately. And it's also interesting too, because like he really revolutionized the rhetoric that white nationalists use as far as like a white genocide and like making themselves seem like the victim because that was very much like not their verbiage before and they're like why would we be the victim and they're like and so then like media has adopted that like part and parcel like all these like radical notions have now been absorbed by mainstream media networks and stuff like that but also you get to see because like the journalist like also talks a lot to former friends or just people that at his university because when it comes out who he is, they're like, do we, kick him out? Do we be mean to him? Do we just go full silence? Do we befriend him? Like, what do we do? And everyone has like a different answer or response to it, which is really interesting because I think it's putting into play a lot of the thoughts people have about what do we do? Like, what's the right response to this sort of thing? For our final question for 2024, did you notice any patterns in the types of stories you were reading this year? So this can be genre, this can be just like tropes, what have you.
For me, it was a lot of kind of what I've said already. It was like the completing shit list. So just getting books off like long time TBR, backlist books for like reading an author's entire collection or most of a collection. Um, and books that I was doing like themed books for videos. And I think that's why, as I've said a couple of times, I had maybe less of a good reading year because the books I had on my TBR were not books I was like emotionally attached to, things I was really wanting to read. It was like, oh, it's on my shelf and I don't want to carry it 3,000 miles. So let's read it.
Going a bit deeper into that though, was there a pattern in these books that you had but weren't in love with? Were they things that you just picked up on a whim, but you weren't overly invested in? Were they gifts? Because there might be something for you for next year, noticing a pattern of like, I just didn't. Like, I
I'm
think
gonna
I'm more
call
interested in
them,
X than I am.
yeah, I'm gonna call them whim books. Most of them were books that I got at like book sales or I got at little libraries where I feel like you're in this environment where you're like, this is the 25 books that's available in a little library. This one looks the most interesting. Am I actually interested in reading it? No. Did it have a mongoose on the cover at the time and that was interesting? Yes. So I felt like they were not like books I'd heard of maybe, so it was just like easy to pull them out of a stack. And I'm like, oh, I've heard of that, versus being like, oh, it's a book that I think I really want to read, or I'm really interested by the story or the themes. So yeah, that's my surface level answer.
Who hasn't been tricked by a mongoose? It's gotten the best of us all, I think, at one point or another. Jay, how about you?
I was looking at my spreadsheet and for combining 2023 and 2024, it was pretty like split. I had like a healthy mix of genres. I read some fantasy, some horror thriller, some YA, some memoir, dystopian. For just 2024, I read like Mostly fantasy, and I do think that the fantasy books were more successful in terms of keeping my attention. I also think that the fantasy books were ones that I chose to read, rather than ones that were assigned to me. So yeah, so I think like confirming what I already knew, which is that fantasy is my genre of choice.
Fair enough. I read quite a bit of romance. If I counted right, I think I read 14 romance books that were like primary romance versus like there'd technically be more if we were talking about like subplots or subgenres. There was a lot going on this year. There was family stuff, there was political stuff, so I just wanted a good ass time. Like I was very much just like and kiss. And that was the vibe. I also did more rereading this year, which is something I've been wanting to do, but I think having a few of those key books that I really, really wanted to reread on that 24 books in 2024 challenge just helped up their priority level a little bit more. Because as a person who's trying to divorce themselves from productivity and everything, it feels more productive to read a book that's on my unread list than something I have read. And then also my horrible habit now of attracting books to me means I'm like, I need to get rid of some of these books. And so um, I can sometimes get waylaid by that and be like, oh, read an unread book. But it was a good moment. So I am very happy with that. Now, to the future, 2025. Do you have any specific goals for 2025? And how many books are you aiming to read?
I can go first. I took notes. I was prepared for this. I stayed up too late doing the assignment. I want to stay in the 50 to 75 book range. That's like my happy place for shizzle. If I go over that, it's too many. And I actually think I kind of want to drop a little bit below 75 because I think it was it was like 10 too many books this year that I probably should have seen. I've had a goal that I've kept with me for the last like few years, which is to try to read with intention. So just trying to make sure that I'm reading more books that are more diverse. So less American authors, less white authors, which I'm going to point out is hard in some genres. Like if you are a big romance fan, most of them are written by straight white authors. And it's also just hard to find books that aren't because they're less promoted or they get less marketing. So it's harder to find books that have different stories in certain genres. I also want to read more sci-fi. One of my favorite books this year was a sci-fi book. I read 3 sci-fis, and I think honestly 2 of those don't really count. I think I read 1 sci-fi book this year. I like that. And then also my biggest book goal, which is, not booktube, is that I'm starting a book podcast with my best friend in real life, partially to blackmail her into continuing our friendship and talking to me 30 minutes a week, but also because, well, I love the booktube format. This is what I enjoy the most. I enjoy talking to other people about books more than I enjoy sitting in my bedroom talking to a camera, in that cringe way that we all enjoy when we are a booktuber. So I'm looking forward to that. And just my life right now is more amenable to 30 minutes of talking in the evening time when there's no light at all versus having this right now, which is like nice lighting in my book place. My husband is fully like wrangling my toddler and he's wrestling her somewhere outside the home. And I have probably like a half an hour left. I've told him to delay. So the podcast, I think, is going to be more amenable. I'm looking forward to trying a new format and getting to talk more. Because I do really love these kinds of things, but I feel like the YouTube algorithm also just doesn't promote, the things that are actually the most fun about books, which is talking about books with your friends and collabs. Because I think that's what I enjoy the most, and it doesn't do very well. So boo, watch this video.
Okay, specific goals. It's so funny because Kelly says, Kelly asked us to do this video about our bookish goals, and I was like, Kelly, I don't think I care about the books I read next year. And Kelly says, I love that. It's a contrary opinion. I do have some goals. Well, like how many books am I aiming to read?
You're a
So
Virgo. You always have goals. It's just whether or not they're related to reading.
that's fair. My goals are very much related to writing. I would love to have an outlined novel and two completed short stories for you two to read. So excited and nervous about that. I did this in like a book in I said this in a video that's gonna come out, but said that my goal is just to read one book this year. Another booktuber I follow just sets that as a Goodreads goal because it's the point is not a number goal, the point is just to read. And I think I'm really leaning into it. And also I feel like having like a number goal really encourages me to prioritize shorter books, and I don't want to do that this year because if I had stuck to that, I never would have read Babel, my favorite book, you know?
I love that. Yeah, really hitting on that reader to YouTuber to writer pipeline. And I love that for you. Also, like everyone's in a different space in life. Like Rosika, it makes perfect sense that yours would maybe be a touch lower because like you're trying to keep a small child alive. I've heard that takes time and effort for some reason.
So much effort. She tries to kill herself multiple times a day. Like it's a lot. I'm like, don't stick your finger in that. Don't eat that. That's not food.
Oh my God. One of my nieces is just completely feral. Like she like ate a black widow. For me, I am doing the 20 books TBR because I just love that. That's super fun. I really don't care about the amount I read. I always just put on Goodreads 50 books because in order to like get the stats and like for the challenge and keep track of what I read per year, like I think you need to put in an amount and 50 is an easy win. And don't we all need easy wins? Like just yeah, so whether it's one book, whether it's 50 books, I'm all about just yeah, whatever makes sense for you in your life. Because it's really not about the number. I would have been happy if I had only read 50 books this year. I just had the time. So I read a lot more and I got to experiment with stuff I just found randomly at the library or graphic novels or comics that took like 2 minutes to read. So there's that. Any specific books, authors, or genres you want to prioritize in 2025?
Yes, I have a lot of answers to this. Okay. Ah! Okay, so I had to get my phone. So firstly, I want to read like more like nonfiction. Nonfiction is not my favorite genre, but I do think that if going to insist on writing fantasy, I need to like learn. I need like more things to inspire like world building things. If anyone has like a world building for dummies book, like please recommend it to me. My boss and my Spanish tutor independently recommended this book to me, so I now have to read it. It's called A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. And I hear she's a really incredible like
Le
fantasy.
Guin.
What? Liquid?
Ursula Liquid. Ursula
Right?
K. Le Guin. And
Liquid.
yeah, she's
Liquid.
one of those legacy writers for that genre.
Yeah.
She's
Okay.
really well known. I had to read Wizard of Earthsea in college.
Is it good?
I hated it, but don't let that stop you.
Okay.
Um, but I like their short story, The Ones That Walked Away from Omelas. That's also like a staple literary classic. I highly recommend that one. And it's short story, so really easy for you to sneak in.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely do that. Figured I had to at least try it, you know. So those are things.
There's plenty of people who love it, so don't
Okay,
let me scare you away.
cool.
Also, I was hella anxious and depressed in my senior year of college. So I was just cranky in general. So oh,
Gotcha. Maybe it was just a different time for you. I also want to read or reread more fantasy. Like right now I'm rereading Hunger Games because I like the writing style and also the pacing of that. I'm going to be rereading Babel and I'm going to be rereading the Six of Crows duology because those are books that I really like. I really like the writing style. I like the pacing of it. I like that's the kind of fantasy I want to write. So I want to like remember what it's like to experience those books.
Stop. Hang on to my phone. So Specific books, authors. I want to read another Murakami, like I said, because I want to know if he's as obsessed with boobs in his other fiction books. So I'm open to suggestions for which Murakami to read, because I'm pretty sure I don't want to read Norwegian Wood. That's the one that I've heard the most about where I'm like, I'm not an angsty boy. I don't need to read this. Um, Also, Japanese authors. I want to read Breasts and Eggs by Mieko Kawakami because I'm always trying to read a few more ladies, in the translated works. And I really liked a short story. I think she wrote Miss Ice Sandwich, which I always call Miss Ice Cream Sandwich, and that's not the name of the book. But I really liked that, and I liked her writing style. So I want to read a longer book that she's written. And then more sci-fi, but kind of specifically, I'm looking for like that hope punk, like sci-fi. Becky Chambers was my girl this year, and I love the Wayfarer series. That was like one of my favorite things that happened to me. And I was raised by Captain Janeway, Star Trek Voyager. I was raised by Firefly. Okay. I wanted to be Kaylee. And I want more stories like that. I'm taking recommendations. If any of y'all have something that's kind of like that would remind you of like, that's kind of uplifting. I need less like the world is terrible because, we're here. So maybe like less of that. So more uplifting, but in that like sci-fi genre. So I think that's what I'm looking forward to this year.
I had a book ready to go, but then you said uplifting. I went, no.
Do people get eaten? Do they eat each other? Is that,
No,
are
no.
Well,
you sure?
to be
Small snacking?
fair, there's a little cannibalism in Firefly, so it's not
That's
not on point.
right.
What episode?
Mm,
Like, well, I
it's
mean, it's
just
throughout
the
uh,
rebirth.
Oh,
the Reavers, yeah.
right,
Rebirth,
right.
Jesus.
Yeah, I think uplifting's really the vibe that I'm wanting. I have in the past like dark books. I'm not against dark books, but like I just for my mental health really am leaning in that direction as well. I do want to read a few more classics and well-known books because I'm a hipster and I really vibe with being like, I know. Huh." So some to include, but I won't do all of them because I'm probably going to do its own video on my TBR for next year. But like The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I want to finish Pride and Prejudice. I got like 80% of the way through and then because I was reading it in college and then like I got behind. What else? Oh, Know My Name by Flu. Uh,
Chanel Miller.
Chanel. I knew Chanel was wrong, but that's what my brain told me. And then it just kept repeating it. And I'm like, that's not it. That's not it.
Want to read that book so bad. Also,
Yeah.
maybe we could put that as the not a book club book club.
Yeah. That'd be fun or sad, but also fun. Um, and then I haven't read any Sally Rooney, so that's also up there for me to get that sorted.
I desperately want to know which Sally Rooney book appeals to you, which Hot Mess Express book is calling to you at this moment.
It's not that any of them appeal to me. It's that Sally Rooney's so famous. So I'll probably just read one. I don't like train wrecks. That's not my idea of a good time. Uh, right now I have one on my list because of it's a favorite of someone else, and I do those once a year at this point, videos where I'm like, yo, I read this semi-famous person's favorite books. So that might end up just being the one because it's one of their favorite books. But yeah, we'll see. I can't even think what they're about right now to even be like, oh, I lean towards this one. I just know that I'm going to be mad already because she doesn't use quotation marks for her dialogue, and that just
I
drives me up a
know.
wall. I can't. I can't. I'm just like, it's 2024. What are we doing? Like, this isn't stylistic. You hate your readers. Other than me being salty. Are there any series you want to start, finish, or continue in the new year?
Well, I've been reading this book series called what was it called? It was called Defy the Something. I think it was called the third book is called Defy the Fates, and I think the first book was called Defy the Stars by Claudia Gray. I was reading this because this YouTuber I follow, with Cindy, she read this years ago, and she it was like her salvation on this like 24-hour plane ride from hell that she went on, and she absolutely loved this book, and I was like I just filed it away and never thought about it again. But then I started writing the story about a woman who might be falling in love with a robot. And that's kind of what happens in this book, although there's also a lot of fun action adventure to go along with it. So I was like, we should do some research. So, so those books were addicting. I will say I really enjoyed it. I'm on the third book right now, so I'm hoping to finish that series even like before the new year. I will say that like I'm very annoyed because I don't know what Claudia Gray is doing, but she just keeps putting obstacles in these characters' paths to get together. And I understand that you need conflict in a story, but I'm so done with it. I'm so over it. Just let them have to face conflicts together. I don't understand why the conflict has to be them being apart and having to get back together.
Dude, it's the worst. I hate it when authors blue ball you. And then the second worst thing is when like they have sequel-itis where they're like, oh no, now they're together and we don't know how to write stories where they like face realistic conflicts together. So they're just going to have a tiff in the first act. And I'm like, I'm not about this life. Like I didn't spend a whole book for them to get together, for them to immediately ruin it by like arguing over like who uses the bathroom first. I don't have time for that.
Iron Flame.
I would love a tiff about like bathroom thing. I would love a book where they realize they shouldn't be together afterwards. I think that would be really funny. But like I'm so done with them being apart. Like I'm so over it.
I'm gonna say that I'm gonna try very hard not to start, finish, or continue any series this year, with the exception of I think I just have to throw The Two Towers just back on the TBR list. It's been a book I've wanted to like read for a solid 3 years now. So let's just throw it on there and then we can address that in 2026.
I love the idea of us creating a legacy, much like Ariel and Raylene, where we can like pull this out every year and be like, hey, this is what you said.
I love that
I
we didn't create like strong goals though, because like my goals are just like I do what I want.
But still, like, just be like, what was on our minds and like reflecting on it, much like Billie Eilish does with those videos every year, just being like, oh man, that was cute. She thought she was going to do X, or like, oh, I thought I was interested in that. And then I went down this rabbit hole, whatever. But for me, I think I want to tackle Mistborn next year, 2025, Mistborn, I'm coming for you. That's the one series that I'm going to have on consideration. Of course, I'm a mood reader, so who knows what else I'll get into or out of, but that's the primary.
I just want to yell into the universe that I love the Mistborn series. Also, I personally feel that each book in the trilogy has a satisfying ending. There's obviously like open-ended things that you want to answer to the next book, but I feel like if you're like, I don't want to continue the series, you could like stop at a book and not hate your life. Like it's not a cliffhanger.
That is good to know. That's nice. The benefit of me being so late to the game is that I can binge. I don't have to wait for a new one to come out, but that is nice if you're like, this was delicious, but I also want to read something different. So my next question, we just have two more. So it's any new books you're looking forward to reading, and I'll be crazy and I'll start this one. Normally, I don't pay attention to what new thing is coming out. I am not about being into things other people are into, and I also hate hardcovers and hardcover prices. So gross. But there's two books that are coming out that I'm actually really excited about. Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green and Half Arse Human: How to Improve Your Life Without Burning Out by Lena Norris. Two YouTubers I really love, both people that I think have are just really smart, but also funny and down to earth. And I'm truly excited for those two. And for my part of my Christmas present, my friend pre-ordered Everything is Tuberculosis for me. So I will be getting a signed copy in March. So exciting, exciting. How about you guys?
I also don't pay attention to new releases. I like John Green's one of my favorite authors, and I still didn't know when his book was coming out, but I would say I'm excited for that one. Books that are new to me, um, my best friend is going to buy me On Writing and World Building, Volume 1 by Timothy Hickson. Is that his name? He's the YouTuber Hello Future Me who has been like my guiding star through all things world building. And yeah, and I'm really excited to read his books. I don't know if it's just going to be his like YouTube videos reproduced into writing format, but I still think that's going to be valuable for me at the very least, so that way I don't have to deal with an ad before I like watch like the things that he has to tell me. Because yeah, that's what I'm most excited about.
I am so excited to hear your review on it because I've been so tempted to buy his book. And I think it will probably be really nice to have it all organized in one kit and caboodle to where you can just flip to the section you need. And then like I would imagine like even if it's very, very similar to his YouTube stuff, having it condensed into being like this one section versus like the information being spread out to like 4 or 5 standalone videos will be a really excellent resource.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy to be like the person who dives into the abyss for you because like I've thought about buying this book for years, but I wasn't writing consistently enough. And yeah, just like now I'm like, even if it is similar to his YouTube videos, I just need it because I'm going to be referencing it so often. Uh, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to like report back.
Books I'm looking forward to reading in 2024. 20, I forget which year it is. Yes, 2024. I
2025.
shit. Books I'm looking forward to reading in 2025. I really want to read A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I really enjoyed her first book, which was it's a really long and irritating title to say, which is a very a very secret society of irregular witches. It's too long of a title, but I've been waiting for this book to come out. I think it was originally supposed to come out in fall of this year in 2024, and it's now been pushed back then to Christmas, and now it looks like next spring. So I'm ready to read it whenever the author would like to give it to me. Yeah.
Love it. And final question to wrap up this video is any books you want to reread next year and why? Rereads, are they on your mind? Are you doing them? Are you not doing them? Is there any particular ones?
In addition to the ones that are going to inspire my fantasy story, I am embarking on my magnum opus, the Kevin Wilson video. So
You
I
heard it
will,
here, folks.
yes.
First, exclusive.
It's coming, I guess, for Kelly's subscribers. My favorite author of all time is a straight white man from the Midwest named Kevin Wilson. He writes the strangest books, in my opinion, and I can't take it anymore. I need more people to be more aware of him and have more thoughts and opinions on his books. And so I am going to give you the definite guide to Kevin Wilson's extended works coming 2025 sometime.
I want you to feature me on this video because I sure as heck read so many Kevin Wilson books for you.
It could be a podcast episode.
I would happy to have you on the pod. Um, Rereads for me, I have nothing really in particular. I think I want to have more like my formative year books, like those early fantasy books that make me happy that I read when I was a kid. For me, that's like everything written by Tamora Pierce. I have her entire like shelf down there somewhere. But I think I just want to pull out those when I'm in more of a reading slump because they always make me happy and they always want to make me read more. So just remembering they're there for me in my time of need.
That's so cute. I love that. I have 2 books in mind for doing rereads. Name of the Wind. I didn't get to it this year, part because I liked it, part inspo for writing, a really interesting take on fantasy and Chosen One. And I love that people call it Hogwarts with student loans. And so, yeah, it'll be fun to like dive back into the prose because his prose is so beautiful. And then a long, long time ago, back in my college days, I read Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf and really liked it. And so I want to reread it now that I have more time to like really sit with it. And I hadn't thought of this until this moment, but I've been slowly going through the Harry Potter series on audiobook. And so I'm on book 6. So most likely the ending bit of book 6 and book 7 I'll be doing next year. And that's just kind of an accident because it's just a cute little thing to listen to, kind of like what you were saying with Tamara Pierce, where it feels very heartwarming. And I can also do it while whittling, while playing video games. Like there's a lot of applications for it. And it's just been a good time to just, sink into that world a little bit more. So there we have it. We did it. We marathon through this video.
Woo, we did it!
We had things that we want all throughout this video. So if anyone has suggestions, recommendations, leave those down below. Like and subscribe to me, because why haven't you? And then also subscribe to these lovely peeps, Jay and Rosika, because they also have really lovely channels and content. See you next time. Bye.
Bye!
Bye.